everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I'm your host, Mary Katharine Ham. I'm here with my co-host, Vic Madison, Washington Free Beacon. We are your morning show for any hour. I am actually over-caffeinated and underprepared today because I broke my Lenten promise and had 1.5 cups of coffee. I know. Fail. Nonetheless,
it's okay.
We'll bring you the news about what's going on with tariffs. There's a Supreme Court update on immigration and deportation moves, and a little update on the Signalgate as well. Not that anyone remembers what that is from 2 weeks ago, but we make it our job to close those loops for you. Even if the people in the national intel are not closing the loops on their own chats, we will close the loop. But before we get to all that, how's it going, Vic?
Hello, Mary Katharine. Well, right now I'm dealing with something that is bulging and on fire. I am talking about my foot. I had a gout flare-up because of dehydration.
Yeah.
I was sick, not getting enough liquids, and now my foot is on fire, and it's like me, Samuel Johnson. I hear Damian Lewis on Wolf Hall. He was portraying Henry VIII with a gout limp.
Oh.
So I thought about,
See, this is why Steve is the hydration police. In our house, you do
constantly,
not get dehydrated.
You have to. No, I mean, this is the big thing. And I sort of
and we don't even have risk factors like you.
I have a lot of risk factors. And I thought about it, and I thought, why is this happening? I'm not doing anything out of the ordinary, dietarily speaking. But of course,
although all the things you do dietarily speaking are not considered good for gout, correct?
Nevertheless, if we weren't in studio, I actually thought about putting a little foot bath with ice here in front. But I don't know. I don't know how that would play on YouTube, so I'm going to skip that.
Okay.
But it is funny because you do find lots of people you can relate to, or people who know a lot of people. I mean, every now and then you run into somebody who has never heard of gout. They don't know what that is, right? Ben Franklin was one of the most famous.
Right. I have not run into him, but yes.
No, and I did recently. He said he got rolled in on a cart in order to sign Declaration of Independence because he had gout. But I was talking to other people, including a guy who's always filled with wisdom, my barber Habib, from Morocco. Al-Nakras is what it's called in Arabic, Al-Nakras, which really sounds like it.
That does sound like exactly what you're feeling.
And he was telling me his father also suffers from it from time to time. He said that they were doing fine. They were in Casablanca. And he said that his father just said, I'm doing fine. I'm going out. There's a meat festival. And I would say, for anybody who suffers gout, those are like the two deadliest words, meat festival.
Meat festival.
And then he said by the end of the night, he was crawling to bathroom like baby.
Oh.
Anyway, that's like me now.
And you took that as a handbook.
I did.
You said, and up next for me, a meat festival.
All I can think of is a Casablanca meat festival must be amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
I think that you should wear this as a badge of honor. You have earned this condition with your decadent lifestyle.
Something like that.
And here you are.
Yes, and here I am. Obviously, you don't have these issues. Nobody in your family. It's not hereditary. There's nobody in your family.
Not to my knowledge.
That's right.
No.
Right.
We're doing okay.
Yeah, you know who has a gout from time to time? Adam White. If you know who Adam White is.
Oh.
He's like, yeah.
The collection grows. You guys need to have like a little Facebook group.
Oh, that's right. You know what I'd call it? Beyond Reasonable Gout.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, if there wasn't a reason to join before, now you got one.
There is.
Okay.
Mary Katharine, how are you?
I am good.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much. My birthday was on Saturday. I had a great time. I'm going to tell you more about that trip. But first, I will play you. My youngest is getting very verbose. He's talking more, and I'll just give this greeting to you guys. Nailed it.
I love it. So you are gonna miss that voice.
I know. So I do tape them. You can never video your kids enough, especially the voices and the mannerisms, because you think that you're gonna remember that forever, but then they morph into this new person and you forget. And I think my older two, I didn't have nearly enough video from when they were kids. I had a lot
audio for that matter, because it really, the sound is really
The sound is
something.
very special.
Yeah, it's special.
So I do have some audio. I did some voice memos back when the little girls were
Same.
little, and they're so cute, those little voices. So that's him saying good morning to you guys. Good morning.
Yes, for me it's this. Good morning is my son now. So
Right.
sadly,
It's a different
it's
vibe.
a different vibe.
So my weekend was lovely. I did a sort of a very a little bit stereotypically tourist day in New York City. But
You were in New York.
It was fantastic. Yes, Steve set it up so that I could meet some of my best friends in New York, and then he came up on Saturday
Set it up.
and met me. And so on Saturday I went to I slept in, and then had a walk in Central Park with my besties with a coffee. Then we had a lovely French restaurant lunch.
Nice.
Got our nails done. Dropped by the M&M store in Times Square.
Not the rapper.
Nope, just the M&M
candy.
brand. Because I was like, a friend was like, she wanted to get something for her kids for Easter. Like, they like M&Ms. I gotta tell you, underrated experience. Like, normally I'd be like, poo-poo, we don't go to that tourist trap.
Yeah, it's a tourist. It's time. No New Yorker goes to Times Square.
No, but it was cool. They got all this branded stuff that's fun and is pretty and made me want to buy it for my kids. I kept it pretty tame. I got them some hair ties that had little M&M shaped decorations on them. But there were slippers, there were T-shirts, there was stuff that I wanted. I was tame. And you know what it is about it?
What?
It's that they make everything in the colors of the M&Ms.
Yeah.
And the brown in there makes it 70s. It has this very cool 70s vibe. And I wanted to buy so many things with the stripe with all the colors on it. And there was a hat that I somewhat regret not buying. Anyway, so that was a very touristy experience.
Can I ask you a question about this? I assume there's lots of M&Ms to eat at the M&M store.
Actually, no, they don't.
You're
no.
kidding, really?
You can make yourself. Well, okay, not for me, a cheapskate. You have to pay for them. So you can make yourself a variety pack, which seems very dicey.
Yes.
Like there are peanuts and caramel
Caramels,
and all sorts of different
Yeah,
textures.
salted pretzel, like
Right.
crushed pretzels.
We did try a new one to me, which was cold brew caramel M&Ms. They were pretty good. They're pretty good.
So how much can you pack in an M&M? It's amazing.
One might argue that that flavor scientists are both our biggest strength and our biggest weakness in this country.
Yeah.
And so you can make yourself a variety pack, and one of my friends did. But then you got like mint in there and caramel. What's going to happen?
That's too dangerous. No,
it's a free-for-all.
But I would like to try the other ones that I see them all the time in the store when you're about to check out, and you stare at them, and you're like, is today the day that I try this thing?
Anyway, and then there's like the delightful little characters, one of whom is the orange one, who I did not realize is just anxious. I feel like he should get a better personality than that. Although the green one, is just like sexy. That's her whole personality.
A sexy M&M?
You know that. The green one with the heels?
She's green.
Yeah.
She's green.
She's green.
Well, there you go, of course.
Although
you know what I'm talking about.
Although I think they've corrected that a little bit, and I think one of the other brown ones is now a woman as well. So there's two.
I mean, one of the male voices famously was J.K. Simmons.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so spend some time with those guys. That wasn't really a major part of the trip, but we just went on a little trip down that.
I know exactly where you are, by the way.
Yeah, and then had some champagne at a steakhouse later in the afternoon for a little drop by.
Name steakhouse. Where? Do you remember?
It was Gallagher Steakhouse.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah, that's great.
And
it's a classic.
Yes, and then this was after the nails done, and then went to the Comedy Cellar for a show.
Wow.
So, which was very funny.
Yeah.
Very funny.
A good comedian?
Several good comedians. Good. So none of the crazy famous people that sometimes walk into
pop in suddenly.
Although Dov Davidoff is fairly famous, and he was first there. Okay. But I saw a woman named Erin Jackson who was very funny, and I think from the South, because she mentioned Food Lion where she was growing up. That was a tell.
That's a tell.
And then a guy named Tommy Brennan, I think, who was like sort of had a Michael J. Fox in his prime vibe. He was good too.
Wow.
So anyway,
well, you have to have a shtick. So.
But I will say that being in one's 40s and thinking you can just take a train up to New York and come back down without being so sore. I feel like 3 days later I'm falling apart still from a train ride.
Well, you know what? At least you don't have gout from it. I would have ended up with gout.
You know what? It's also train ride plus not going to the gym. This is the thing.
Yeah.
Working out as an old person is Hotel California.
If-
You can check out anytime you
can
like,
never
but you
leave.
can never leave. Like once you are on that track, you got to keep working out
Yeah.
to prevent the pain.
Even in my gout, I'm still trying to do the push-ups.
Yes,
that I
you're
can.
either going to
Very
have good pain or bad pain. Opt for good, productive pain in the gym. I have not been doing that for the past couple days, so here I am celebrating my mid-40s
Can't
by
even
being in
tell.
pain.
Can't even tell, and happy belated birthday.
All right, shall we talk about the news?
Let's do it.
My goodness. We have more and more tariff news. The latest breaking news actually is that Elon Musk is talking a bunch of junk about Peter Navarro.
Yeah, there's a lot of internal strife going on, and it's confusing me.
Well, I'm not sure it's confusing. It's just that, like, several people don't believe in free trade, one of them being the president and his buddy Peter Navarro. And people like Elon Musk are like, I'm willing, and Scott Bessent, who's done a decent job of attempting to put some rhyme or reason to this in public, they actually like free trade, and they think that tariffs can be used strategically for certain ends that would get
targeted
you to freer
tariffs.
trade,
Yeah.
or would get you to like not trading with China so much, which is what most of what Trump did with tariffs in the first administration. That's not what's going on right now, and it's got Elon Musk tweeting, "Be still my heart," Milton Friedman's "I Pencil" recitation.
It's a fantastic video if you haven't seen it.
Love that. I mean, everybody, if this, again, as I said in the last episode, if the tariffs thing makes the Congress do its job and take back the reins of power, or if it makes everyone, including the left, watch Free to Choose, I will say this is what I voted for.
Right. As Scott Jennings on CNN said, he was amused how this is what it took to turn a lot of these Democrats and libs into free traders.
So nice to see.
Yeah.
Jared Polis actually might actually be a free trade Democrat, and looking a little bit tempting with this tweet this morning, which was, hold on, Jared Polis is the governor of Colorado.
Yep.
Repealing all tariffs and ending the Jones Act would be a recipe for huge economic growth and success for the USA and the world. Let's do it. Jobs, opportunity, lower prices, and growth. Retweeting a Cato Institute post. So, look, again, if the Democratic Party corrected by putting someone like this at the top of their ticket, that would become very dangerous for Republicans and also much more healthy for the country.
Trump is inadvertently getting these people to self-own, right? I mean, people talk about Trump having owned himself by doing this whole tariff thing, but the fact is all these other people now find themselves in the opposite direction because, once again, whatever Trump does, there's the gut reaction to do the opposite.
Although
which may or may not be,
I think Polis is closer to actually believing some of that stuff.
Yeah.
He's an actual
businessman. I mean, it may actually be true, and it may be, the right thing to do.
But much of the left doesn't.
No. But the Peter Navarro, Elon Musk, and let's throw in Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, into the mix. It leaves me very confused because they don't really they're not on message. And you think that Elon Musk is, very close to the president, has the president's ear. They're doing the Doge thing, government efficiency across the board. People are very upset about that. You had these very organized demonstrations over the weekend, very organized by Indivisible and, Move On or whoever. But
the ironically named, yes.
Yes. But at the same time, Elon is, as you mentioned, clearly a free trade guy because he knows that's what benefits everybody ultimately, particularly his businesses. So how do people react to him in this? And how I'm going to throw Howard Lutnick in the mix, the Secretary of Commerce. People are at a state about things.
Well, Navarro was going after Elon specifically because he was asked about Elon disagreeing with him on this. And he said, we all understand in the White House and the American people understand that Elon's a car manufacturer, but he's not a car manufacturer. He's a car assembler. In many cases, you go to his Texas plant and you're getting parts from these countries and these countries and these countries. And Elon responds on Twitter to this clip. Navarro is truly a moron. What he says here is demonstrably false. Tesla has the most American-made cars. Navarro is dumber than a sack of bricks.
He didn't really mince words, did he?
No,
No. That wasn't too subtle.
He
wow.
Didn't. Look, the problem here, and this week there was also a very quintessentially modern media story and market story where an economic advisor to Trump went on Fox early in the morning, like 8 in the morning. A person from Media Matters or somewhere clipped this clip, And a person named Bloomberg on Twitter misread the original segment and interview and declared that this economic advisor had said that Trump would consider a 90-day pause on tariffs. At this point, the market, not loving the tariffs, goes, woo, skyrockets
Right.
at the idea that there would be a 90-day pause, at which point everyone is like passing around this Bloomberg thing that's not Bloomberg. It's just a guy named Bloomberg who watched the clip and misinterpreted it.
Wow.
And a few minutes later, everyone realizes this is not real. And the Trump administration says, oh, no, we're not considering any of that. Take that, market. Stop rallying. And the markets go back down.
It's like a death wish, really. I don't know. It's
some hoped that blip might show him, look what would happen if you didn't do the tariffs. But no, he was like, nah, we are not pausing
because
one bit.
We're all in, and we have to see this thing through. If we do it this half measure, then what does he say that it, accomplished, or what does he, say that, some country has come to the table or whatever,
Right.
and that they haven't, and he doesn't have anything to show, no deliverables, right? I was very concerned the day after Liberation Day, when I think it was the day after, and Trump's truth was the patient survived. Or was it at the end of the day? In all caps, the patient survived. I want to know what it would look like if the patient died.
Yeah.
What would that be like? And were they thinking that? Was that a possibility? And the patient could still die. I mean, it's like, it's touch and go right now. It's
Although
intensive care.
it's looking-
Let's say the patient is in intensive care.
So here's the thing. The market is looking slightly better. I will concede that, look, the market can be a roller coaster. And if you're in it for the long haul and your retirement is in the future, don't look at your portfolio and hang on.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are other people who will experience the downsides of this, and there will be real effects on the costs of goods should all these tariffs stay in place. Now, the extent to which the markets are saying, okay, maybe we aren't crashing at this moment, is because they are now taking again the interpretation that these tariffs are a gambit, that they are a negotiating strategy. And the problem is that sometimes the White House says they're a negotiating tactic, and sometimes the White House says, no, they are an attempt to reshape the American economy and onshore all of the manufacturing that left during the 1990s, 2000s, and free trade agreements. The time horizon on bringing back what they envision is very long. And I don't think people actually understand what that would look like. It would be tons of automation, as our current manufacturing sector is, which, by the way, isn't dead, but it is very different than it used to be. And it would continue to be different. It would not look like Ohio in the mid-century, Detroit in the mid-century. But like, if they're not negotiating tactics, the market goes again, which I don't know if they're negotiating tactics, because I don't know if he wants to negotiate 0 for 0 tariffs. I think what he wants to negotiate is that we should have no trade deficits.
Yes. That's all I'm going to say is yes. There's so many things I'm not even quite sure where to begin.
I know.
When you talk about the trade deficits, we mentioned this on the last show, that they're not incorporating into these formulas and into the calculus services rendered.
Right.
And you talk about this.
It's only
Other people
goods.
talk about you talked about going to Bojangles. You go to get a haircut. I'm just giving money, and I'm not getting, what I'm getting is a service, but I'm not actually getting anything else in exchange for that. And that needs to, the United States is a huge service provider for the world.
Yes.
I'm not going to.
And culture exporter and entertainment exporter.
Streaming. Let's just talk about streaming. You're not going to some of these countries for streaming. They're coming to us to watch these.
Well, also,
whatever.
let's ask, if the trade deficit is the problem.
Yeah.
How are you going to fix that with much more sparsely populated nations with much less robust economies?
Yeah.
We have a lot of things.
Right.
They don't have that many things. How are we going to trade equally? And by the way, one of the reasons that we buy a lot of stuff is because we have a lot of money and we want a lot of things.
Yes, that's what we do. That's really something that Americans do well, which is spend. But now you have this sort of market uncertainty. What happens when they're not sure what is going to happen in the next 6 months, let alone, Trump's vision of, let's say, 3 to 7 years? they pull back.
People
they
stop
save.
spending money, right?
That is a real problem for the economy.
Yes.
If
And-
that happens.
And capital investment stops spending
Right.
money because they're not sure what the rules of the road are.
Yeah.
And when you get less capital investment and you get less consumer spending, what do you get? Not a good economic situation.
So one of the things that was initially celebrated was the price of oil going down. That's fair. It's great. The price per barrel is way down. The reason for that, I think, is a lot of these giant oil and gas companies are predicting that there won't be as much of a demand in the near to medium future
Yes.
for
It's
gasoline.
It
let's
is on
say,
one hand cheaper and on the
Yeah.
other hand possibly a signal of a recession.
because they know people are not going to be traveling. People are not going to be doing this, that, or the other. They're not expanding their refineries because the price of steel pipes has gone up. I mean, there's all these things to consider. And the other thing, as you mentioned, Mary Katharine, is the idea of bringing factories back home. And I don't know if the labor that we have in this country, certainly in some parts of the country, there are a lot of people who would like to, but according to like the National Manufacturers of America, there's a real deficit in workers for a lot of these factories to do this kind of work.
Well, we
whereas
have
you get this
open-
overseas. Yeah.
We have open manufacturing jobs in this country.
Yes. Yeah. And the idea that we're laying off all these government workers, you know, it doesn't necessarily translate that the guy who was working at Voice of America is now going to
The
work
NIH guy
yeah,
is
is
not
not going to be
going
working in the sneaker factory.
Although one of my Twitter friends, Iowa Hawk, did say, hey, look, I've been as hard on Trump about tariffs as anyone. But if the new vision is a bunch of bureaucrats sitting in a Nike sweatshop in America,
Wow.
you could convince me.
Yeah, I know that's very a command economy. You know what I mean? It's like
Okay, so that's part of this,
Yeah.
is that what
you're
he...
going to do this now.
And what
Also, anyone in glasses must work in the fields.
I believe Derek Thompson tweeted this of The Atlantic, that we should just declare like a liberation freedomathon where every country just gets this amount of time on the phone with the president to work out a new deal.
Sure.
And I actually think that's about as close to what Trump would like as you're going to get.
Yeah.
But the problem again is he solving the trade deficit with Singapore or Zimbabwe, or is he solving the tariff problem? Because if you're
Right.
solving the tariff problem, you take Vietnam's yes, 0 for 0. You take the European Union's yes, 0 for 0, which, by the way, would be a great improvement.
Sure.
I will concede it.
Look,
Um,
you rarely see American cars overseas when I've been.
yeah,
here.
I mean, well,
I
they
was just
can't
there
fit
last
on
summer.
they can't fit on their streets.
The little
so that's part of it.
cobblestone alleyway. There's no way you're putting the Ford Explorer there. That's
Yeah,
true.
that expedition ain't gonna cut
Yeah,
it
yeah.
through the hills of
Yeah.
Germany. But anyway, if you want that, 0 for 0 is a great deal. But they keep shifting back and forth and saying like, yeah, we're negotiating. No, we're not negotiating because we're reshaping the economy. So which is it? The countries trying to come to the table for the liberation telethon don't know what to offer and are attempting. Some 50 countries have come to the White House saying they want to negotiate. Great. Let's get those negotiations done. Although I would note that Vietnam, what it's offering, would have already existed by now had Trump accepted the TPP in 2017.
Right, Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Because another way to think about negotiating with countries to get 0 for 0 tariffs is as a free trade agreement. That's what that would be.
That is, like an AFTA, USMCA.
Yeah, I'm just a little like, why do we hate we don't like free trade agreements where we agree to both lower trade barriers. But we do like a trade war that results in 0 for 0
There might
tariffs.
be a trade agreement in place, but we're going to throw it out so we can claim victory on the new trade agreement that basically replicates the previous one.
I mean,
Think
part of
about
it is
this.
that he just likes to do the negotiating.
He likes
That's
the
part of it.
negotiating. I mean, there are at least 14 or 15 different trade agreements that were in existence before Liberation Day. So I imagine a lot of these countries are going to negotiate, quote unquote, with the administration saying, yes, and what we would like is to establish the no trade barriers between our two countries that previously existed until Liberation Day and just put that back in place. Or what about, I don't know, the United Kingdom or Australia, who has a reverse trade deficit, right? Where we're flooding their markets and they're not getting anything out of that. And yet we're slapping them with tariffs too. So I'm not quite sure about that. And then there's small countries like Cambodia that
Ugh, Cambodia.
Trump talks about getting ripped off, but it's not like it's Monte Carlo in there.
And if you were trying to not be as invested in China,
yeah,
you would want to look to the Cambodias and Vietnams of the region,
right,
and incentivize
to us.
them
Right.
to do business with us. Now, there is the possibility that Chinese products come through a Vietnam, or look, this is what free trade is. There are all sorts of entanglements. Please watch I Pencil as recited by Milton Friedman, or read it.
Yeah.
So there's
whether you like it or not, we are all now very much interconnected.
Yes.
We cannot revert to that previous upend that global market.
Well, and I think that American workers and communities, one of which I lived in, which was devastated by the textile mills leaving.
Sure.
In southern North Carolina, right on the South Carolina border. It's sometimes called the poverty belt. I think those workers and those generations that came up while those places were very bereft have a point in saying, like, my cheap socks are cool, but there was a trade-off made here that people weren't recognizing when this decision was made. And also, the economy cannot be reverted to 1980. No. I think many of the people in this country who have a lot of things available to them, if, by the way, in this scenario, we ended up not having a lot of those products available to us, would not like that. Yeah. Right? You would find that your prosperity is actually, and your ability to get sometimes cheap goods is pretty important to you.
It would be an interesting time. Our friend Matt Continetti on the Commentary podcast was recommending the works of Jude Wanniski, the economist, about the importance of economic freedom and why that matters. There's another book that came to my mind recently in all this, which was David Halberstam's book, The Reckoning, about how the Japanese had the edge on us in the automotive industry with cars. Yeah. And a lot of it was the trade barriers and the protectionism that, resulted in a lack of competition for American cars. They didn't have to worry about the competition from Honda or Toyota at the time. And as a result, lack of competition, lack of innovation, you had some crappy cars.
That's the other thing. If your government is willing to shut off the rest of the world, your company does not have to compete on the toughest ground. Right. And then you lose quality of product.
That's right.
As you go. But anyway, I do think there's a place for doing this in the way that the first term Trump did. Yeah. And using it to lessen how much we engage with China. Mm-hmm. Somebody made the point, I think it might have been John Carney, who is on the president's side on the tariffs reshaping the American economy, says, like, these we absorb these countries' surpluses. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we absorb these countries' surpluses by buying goods freely that we wish to have, right? It's like, I think there are ethical and annoyance problems with all the Chinese stuff that comes into my house from various birthday parties, question. Right?
Again, we you know what? Kate was convinced. Yeah. In these birthday parties, you ever get the candy bracelets? Mm-hmm. She's convinced it's made in China. It's like, you are not eating that. Yeah.
We can look into that. Getting Hammered investigates.
Candy bracelets.
So there are concerns, and also we're not being violated by them coming into the country. Yeah. Like many people are just buying the things, right. And a market exists for this to a great degree, whether it's Shein clothing or it's
Temu.
Or it's Temu. So it's not exactly just that we're absorbing surpluses and getting ripped off. So I think there's a place for this. I think there's a strategic way for it to work.
Targeted tariffs.
I think trying to solve a trade deficit is trying to solve a problem that's not really a problem. Yeah. And if that's your aim...
That's right. Services.
And it becomes a command and control economy. Yeah. Because if you want to keep our trade balance exact with every nation on this earth, or almost exact, that's going to take a lot of dictating from the top. And I don't want no part of it.
It really is, the core of Trump's beliefs is not... I agree. I think he's not using this as some sort of political cudgel for some other. He's always believed from day one that America's getting ripped off, and I'm sympathetic to that. You know, but the question is again, how do you go about this? And perhaps they're not getting as ripped off as you think in certain ways.
In certain ways, right?
Or
by a lot of these countries like Cambodia.
Right.
I'm not sure we're getting ripped off by
the
Cambodia.
Kingdom of Lesotho. Yeah. The kingdom.
Well, nobody's ever heard of that. So.
Yeah. Right. Apparently.
By the way, credit to Trump, who of course remains our most entertaining president for sure, creating a new term for the people who oppose his policies. The United States has a chance to do something that should have been done decades ago. Don't be weak. Don't be stupid. Don't be a panican. A new party based on weak and stupid people. Be strong, courageous, and patient, and greatness will be the result. So if you are a panican, watch out.
I feel like a panican is something like a zoom lens for my camera. I gotta, put my little panican on there.
I mean, the man has a way with words.
He has. And do you think that he came up with that sort of, the derivation all on his own, or did somebody say, hey, you know what?
No,
Let's
I think
panic
that's
and Republican.
I think that's
panic. That's pure Trump.
That comes straight from the heart.
Yeah.
Straight
Okay.
from the heart. And yes, I do think you're right. He has talked about this for years. There's another. I saw another
Since he
tweet.
was very young.
That was like he's treating the tech bros and the hedge fund managers like the other parties have treated the working class for all these years. Couple things. The tech bros and the hedge fund managers all voted for Trump.
Yeah.
So let's just let's be careful with that
Yeah.
one. And again, the results you're getting through this policy for working class voters better be quick.
Yeah.
And better override the chaos such that it is,
Right.
and the higher prices that they might see in everyday goods.
The question is about those higher prices because the tariffs on China now, which Trump threatens to raise to like over 100%, and China now saying that they're going to retaliate.
Well, because China has the advantage of not having to elect anyone and not caring about its people.
No, there's no.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, they don't have an accountability issue unless
So if they have to,
everyone
like,
just somehow magically rose up against them.
Right. If
But,
they have to like feminize everyone to beat us, they might just do that.
Yeah, because they have to deal with it. I mean, and so, but for us, obviously, elections coming up, the midterms coming up. The first ones are going to be in this off-year election in 2025. And I do expect probably Spanberger will win because in Virginia against Winsome Sears for the governor's race, just because traditionally it's the party that's out of office.
Right.
Nevertheless, this doesn't help. I was talking about this on Hugh Hewitt's show the other day, and they asked me about what prices would affect me by going up, and I totally fell for the snob tax issues. For me, it's like, I don't know, French wine, Scotch, but there are a lot of
Wrong answer, Vic.
Wrong answer, but
You'd be like socket wrench sets.
Right. Not sure what that is, but I'll look into that. No, but
an air filter wrench.
If you are, for example, if you're
anything
young,
with wrench in it.
wrenches
just go
is
with
good.
it,
If you were young, right? Jokes aside, if you were young, renting an apartment, sharing it, with a couple other housemates or whatever. You need to buy things. Got furniture, lamps, whatever. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to Target, right?
Yeah.
Or you're going to go to IKEA. All that stuff is made in China. I imagine all the prices of that are going to go up.
Yeah, I think that will be the case.
And there's great American furniture, don't get me wrong, particularly if you are in the Commonwealth of Virginia, places like Berryville, or in North Carolina, Thomasville. But kids are not going to afford that sort of.
Yes.
And it's beautiful stuff, but they're not going to afford that for the apartment. They want the Kista or whatever the simple bookshelf is, or the chair. And it's cheap, and it's good, but it's also I recognize it's a problem, but still.
Maybe they'll start taking a few more of those China cabinets off their parents' hands.
That's right.
Every set of parents whose kids have moved away has a couple China cabinets to hand you.
Yes, and some of them may contain
for your curios.
Yes, I was going to say precious moments.
Yes.
I don't think people are buying that anymore.
By the way, I'm of an age that. Give me the curio cabinets. I'm here for it. Okay.
I don't know what to do with it.
Alrighty.
All right.
Let's talk about the Supreme Court decision.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the Supreme Court decided yesterday 5-4, with the dissent being Sotomayor, Kagan, right? Sotomayor, Kagan, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Amy Coney Barrett. Although Amy Coney Barrett only dissented in part.
Right.
In fact, all 9 justices agreed on this, which probably the administration is not such a big fan of, although they are crowing about this being a victory. What happened? This is the I'm sorry. What is the name of the act? The
Enemies Alien Act.
Okay, the Alien Enemies Act, which is this very old law that on wartime footing you could take people and deport them with an expedited process.
Yeah.
Which the administration attempted to use on Venezuelans. claiming that they were part of Tren de Aragua, which they had designated as a terrorist organization. And this was like, therefore, a wartime invasion.
That's right. It's tantamount to an invasion
by this gang.
Yeah.
Okay. So they do that, and they admit that at least one of these guys they wrongfully deported because he had a protection order issued during, or protection status issued during the former Trump administration that did not allow him to be deported to his home country of El Salvador. And in fact, he needed to go through a process and be sent somewhere else. Okay. So they messed up with at least one.
Yep.
And this goes to the Supreme Court to judge whether the district court has the right to stay these proceedings, to temporarily restrain the Trump administration. There's a lot of specific legal terms. I'm not going to get into them. But the Supreme Court ruled, basically all 9 said, these people, even under this act, deserve notice that they're being taken out of the country and the ability to appeal it, because otherwise you're not hitting your due process requirements. However, the 5 who ruled with the administration said these proceedings have to happen in the place of the detention.
Yeah.
You cannot forum shop, essentially, which is what the ACLU did and ended up with Justice Boasberg in the D.C. Circuit Court. Right. You have to do it where you are. It's a habeas process. It has to happen at the place of detention. So it does seem to restrict where these folks will be able to appeal in the future.
The ACLU knew exactly what they were doing. Right. And this is why, as you said, they shopped it around. They knew places like the District of Columbia would be ideal for that. And obviously the Trump administration knew in some of these cases, if you want to talk about the Mahmoud Khalil case where they moved him down to Louisiana from New York. They know what's going on. I mean, they understand that. But there's still a level of due process for these individuals, according to the court, and it's a question of where do you litigate the habeas rights, and it's at the place of origin, as you mentioned. But they cannot. But they're also right that you can't. Plane's on its way. A judge doesn't have a power to turn the plane around.
Well, and this would seem to limit in the future exactly how much forum shopping people can do, exactly how much delay they can put into this process. The Supreme Court requires a reasonable notification, so we will see how much the administration tries to press its luck on that, or how many lefty lawyers the left can muster to do individual hearings for all of these people, because I have a fair amount of confidence that they could flood the system pretty easily with all of their copy and paste briefs and going before, even in the places of the detention, they could gum up the works there. And again, that's for good reason, because sometimes you send somebody who shouldn't have been sent, which is the case of the guy who went to the El Salvador prison. And then they were like, we can't bring him back. And I believe they've been ordered to bring him back now.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia. It is a very interesting case.
Yeah.
He came here when he was young. And suppose the story is that he was pressured into joining a gang in El Salvador. Barrio 18. Did I say Ocho?
Look at you.
Did I say Ocho?
You got it.
I know some
you
Spanish,
got it.
Yeah. And he fled. But during the time that he's in the United States, there was some interaction with MS-13. And during a bond hearing, some other person on the witness stand identified Garcia as a member, a high-ranking member, no less, of MS-13, and that he even had a nickname, and that Garcia didn't necessarily push hard back against those
and he was denied bond at that time based on that information.
Yeah. So, okay, I could see that this is hazy. He may or may not be. Sounds like he has some sort of an affiliation. But the government or the courts recognized that he would be in danger if he got sent back to El Salvador.
Because of gang retaliation.
Yes.
Right.
So there was a withholding of removal that was placed on him, which is might send him to Venezuela, ironically, but you can't send him back to El Salvador.
Yes, the rule on that is that you have to go to court and say, we're revoking this withholding of removal, and we are sending him elsewhere. Yeah. You can't send him to his home country, but this is, by the way, a protection order granted during the time of the former Trump administration. Yeah. 2019, I think.
That's right. And the administration this is the other problem, is the administration fully admits it was a quote administrative
That they
error
messed it up.
and a quote oversight, but that they're not going to bring him back. That's just
Well, and here's
not a
the
good
thing.
thing.
Is that all of these cases, many of these cases could be hazy. Are they this? Are they that? I understand that the Biden administration, perhaps intentionally, overwhelmed the system so that we could get to a point where it's very hard to remove people in the numbers that you need to remove them, right?
Yeah.
Including gang members.
Right.
However, when it's hazy, we have a process for figuring out, and you have to mount evidence and you have to do these things. That doesn't change the fact that he was here illegally, and I think the country has a right to kick him out of the country.
Right.
It's all
as Caroline Levitt mentioned very early on in the administration, they're already breaking the law. Yes. We've got it into our minds that is not an illegal thing. And if Kamala Harris were still president, it would not be an illegal thing.
It would not be. No. So he was here. He came here illegally. He was here for many years illegally. Mm-hmm. He was then granted this thing, which you can override with a court proceeding. But yes, this is the pickle that the Biden administration got everyone in with the 10 million entrants over the last 4 years, which make it very hard.
From time to time, Mary Katharine, I think to myself, and I mean, we just went on a whole rant on tariffs, right? Yeah. You and I are very much free traders by nature. And I understand, this is all very short term. Things can get better. The market seemed to be going up while we were recording this. Fine. Countries coming to the table. Countries that didn't have problems are coming to the table.
Yeah.
So they
Israel,
Israel,
which had zero tariffs on us.
Things like that.
Netanyahu was here yesterday, and he's like, he gets it. He was like, "Oh, we're gonna fix that trade deficit, sir."
Yeah,
that's
fine.
He was like, "I get it.
Right.
I see what's going on here."
So there are issues, and a lot again with some of our allies like Taiwan, right? But and people ask this in other places as well. Would you be better off or worse off if Trump was not president, but it was President Kamala Harris? What do you think?
This is one of the more spectacular self-owns and shooting in the foot that I have ever seen. I actually analogize it to Biden because Biden's vice was government spending. Yeah. And he didn't have to do what he did when he came in. He could have just let the economy open back up again and it would have done gangbusters. But he's like, nah, I got to dump $4 trillion in here. We got to do it.
Yeah, not enough. We got to, and people don't go stay home and we're just going to give you money.
So he kicked off inflation in that way and handicapped himself as he's already fairly handicapped literally, but you know what I'm saying. And Trump, his vice is tariffs. Yeah. And it turns out these aren't reciprocal tariffs. They are an attempt to fix the trade deficit that may or may not be negotiable. And you have what was like probably a pretty weakened economy to begin with that maybe needed a little bit more reset from the superinflation.
Yep, a little nursing.
And then maybe a nascent recovery on the way, and then you just stab it. Yeah. That seems bad. However, when you give me the option of Harris and Biden, who I don't even think was president, and that is the biggest presidential scandal of my lifetime, even though the press does not recognize it as such, then the crazy guy who was actually elected is your guy.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, number one, we all knew he said, it sounded like surprise. I was a big free trader during the campaign, and now I want tariffs. No, he said it, and he's doing it. So, I mean, what you see is what you get, really.
One more thing about that, because a lot of people are like, why would the financial guys side with him, given that this is his rhetoric? It was his rhetoric, but he also was president before and didn't do this.
Right, he didn't.
So it was a calculated risk from some. One more thing on the SCOTUS thing that, of course, a lot of people are going after ACB for siding with the lefty judges. As I said, she only sided with them in a couple of points. Basically, what this amounts to is that the dissenting justices wanted this to percolate through the lower courts. Yeah. And it did not percolate. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, nah, the district court doesn't have the right to do this. This should have happened elsewhere.
That's right.
And she disagreed with the method by which they were taking that on and the timing in which they were taking that on. If my understanding is correct, it was part of the dissent. Yeah. This is a procedural issue to some degree. It's not like she's like, yay, gangs forever. That's not how the Supreme Court works. Read the things. Also, I would just note on this subject when it comes to these things, with the process that we go to and the percolating and the giving it time. You know where there was no percolating or process? At the border.
Yeah.
From 2020 to 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be rejecting lectures from those who are happy to disregard the process entirely.
The anguish and the tears now versus a couple years ago when it was, over 300,000 people crossing the border?
Yeah, because they don't care about process. They care about they care about open borders. That's what they care about.
And we're at, so on the one hand, something like, look, again, you take the good, you take the bad. Somebody accidentally gets sent to El Salvador. It's a problem. We just talked about that. They should bring them back. On the other hand, if this was a Harris administration, they'd all still be here, including the leader of MS-13 would still be in Woodbridge, Virginia.
Right.
Right? And everything would be fine.
Yeah.
And now we're down
Woodbridge.
to what?
Haven.
Yeah,
Haven for MS-13.
I don't know. It's like 6,000, 7,000 border crossings recorded versus 100,000.
Yes.
It's remarkable.
Well, and this is the important part about the immigration stuff. On this, more than the economy, voters will give him so much leeway.
Yeah.
So much. Now, that doesn't mean that I think that everything he does is right, but politically speaking, he has a ton of runway here.
Right. For the amount of time and energy devoted to immigration now, and the deportations now, and forcing them to really defend, in a lot of times, Tren de Aragua, the left is being forced into this position, of course. Right. You never heard, and you continue to never hear from the left, Lakin Riley, Jessica, Nungare.
They don't care about that.
Just Jocelyn Nungare, yeah.
Not important. All right, we have an update on the Signal situation.
Right, yes.
Which that story really faded. You got to believe that Hegseth and Waltz were like, oh yeah, Deliberation Day. Put that up next week. That sounds good.
This could be part of the plan, Mary Katharine.
Let's do that instead of talking about Signal.
And nobody's talking about.
No, but we do have an answer, perhaps, for how Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number got into the phone of Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, says, it was sucked into my phone. He said, we're going to investigate this. We're going to figure out how this happened. And we were all kind of like, did you just meet Jeffrey Goldberg and put him in your phone and maybe things got a little mixed up? But there is a plausible explanation for this.
That is correct. And it was reported in The Guardian, so kudos to them. In the, I guess it was during the first Trump administration, or it might have been during the Biden administration, when The Atlantic published the article about Trump having a hatred towards those who were in military
military suckers
service.
And losers. That story.
Yeah,
yes.
Suckers and losers. Needless to say, the administration was up in arms and upset. And said there's nobody named in this story. And Brian Hughes, who worked for Trump at the time on the campaign or whatnot, had reached out to Mike Waltz, who was then a congressman,
a spokesperson for their national security and military affairs.
That is correct. And asked Waltz to reach out to Jeffrey Goldberg and set the record straight about how Trump is a staunch supporter of the military. And this would be coming from somebody like Mike Waltz, who has multiple Bronze Stars, is a Green Beret. It's just, unimpeachable. Waltz ended up not talking to Jeffrey Goldberg. But in that text exchange, Brian Hughes sends Jeffrey Goldberg's cell phone in the text, which then becomes Brian Hughes's cell phone, according to The Guardian.
And if I may, I still think this is a real boneheaded mistake, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
But the thing where he said it got sucked into my phone, it may have.
Yeah.
If he has an iPhone and that text was sent
with a number
that had a phone number in it, your iPhone might say to you, and this is why you shouldn't trust the robots, might say to you, suggested contact update. Brian Hughes, this number. That seems to be what happened here. And that Brian Hughes now is the spokesperson for the National Security Council.
Yeah.
Who would have been a person
who
might have been on this list to begin with.
Exactly.
And the number was Jeffrey Goldberg's, but was paired up with Brian Hughes's name.
This happened, Mary Katharine, it happens more often than you think. This happens to me all the time with massage parlors and other services. I said, well, how did that get in there? Somebody else's number.
It makes me want to go through every contact I have, which would be a
Oh,
real pain in the butt, and ask. I want to be like, Siri, what have you done?
Right.
Who have you added?
Honest to goodness, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on that one. That seems plausible. I told you about my phone having different faces to different numbers in the first place.
That scenario seems plausible.
Why did it do that?
It does not negate the fact that they messed this up.
Yeah,
and
don't do it. Even if the previous administration had some communication on Signal, that there's go to the SCIF and there's other ways to do this.
Also, again, how are we making sure it doesn't happen again?
Yeah,
I haven't heard that. Have we found the setting on our iPhone that says don't suggest contact updates to me? Because we should find that.
Because you know what? It does say suggested. It'll say that update.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
This happens.
Don't trust the robots.
You had something else that you wanted to talk about that I was not prepped on, but I said, we can wing it anyway.
There are two quick things. One, the direwolves are back.
Oh, right.
The direwolves are back. Okay. This is from a company called Colossal Biosciences. Okay, private company.
That sounds like something created by Michael Crichton.
Mm-hmm. Right. Direwolves went extinct about 12,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age, weighing around 150 pounds. They were about twice the size of today's gray wolves. Direwolves roamed both North and South America, preying on ancient horses, camels, sloths, and bison. Sloths never stood a chance, man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That means they could climb trees?
I guess.
The wolves? Ooh, no like. Colossal Biosciences, the private company aiming to bring back from extinction the woolly mammoth, announced today that it had produced 3 direwolf pups using genetic editing and cloning. This is Reason Magazine reporting on this. The researchers at the company extracted and sequenced the genomes of direwolves from a 13,000-year-old tooth from Ohio and a 72,000-year-old skull from Idaho. So this is just
the DNA
Jurassic
they got.
Park.
This is Jurassic
The only
thing that's missing is the amber.
Yep. The researchers then made 15 key edits in gray wolf genomes to more closely match the genomes of direwolves. The nuclei of the edited cells were then inserted into the enucleated dog eggs that were installed in the wombs of surrogate mother dogs. I'm not loving all of this. Not loving it. The result was the birth of 4 direwolf pups. One died 10 days after birth. Setting right the world. I'm just kidding. The 2 6-month-old male pups are named Romulus and Remus, after the founders of Rome, who were raised by wolves. The 2-month-old female is Khaleesi, a title from Game of Thrones, which actually,
come on now.
Wrong family.
Wrong family. Snow.
Come on,
you got to go with the,
yeah,
Starks.
Yeah,
the Starks.
Arya.
Of course.
Name her Arya. What's wrong with you
go.
guys? That's what I'm maddest about, actually, is the crossing of the families.
People are the meme, the Jeff Goldblum meme from Jurassic Park is out there now, but it's totally true, which is getting so excited that you can do something. You didn't stop to think if you should do something. You should
do it.
I'm not so sure about it. This is pretty scary. Wolves are scary in the wild, let alone a dire wolf.
Well, these wolves have thick white coats, which will make them...
They have their chance to survive. And
the fun thing about that is it's going to make a bunch of rich, crazy people want to buy dire wolves because they do look really cool. No, if only for that. No, I think just to have as pets.
Oh, my gosh.
They have thick white coat. They're bigger than gray wolves with more powerful shoulders, wider heads, larger teeth and jaws.
Bigger heads.
And muscular legs. So it's just like the pit bull of wolves.
Yes.
Sorry to the pit bull owners out there. I know I'm going to get it for that. Anyway.
There was a movie that came out, a horror movie. One of those teen/kind of horror movies called Frozen, before Disney's Frozen. So you may end up getting the wrong movie if you look into this. And it was about these, teens or 20s or whatever. They're on a ski lift and they jump on, right? Because they want to go for free.
Right.
And they hop on and because, nobody's around. And what they don't realize, it's the last one of the day. And the person way back at the resort shuts down the thing and they're going to be stuck there. And it's a 3-day weekend and they're going to freeze to it because it's really, really cold and no one can hear them. So then the 3 of them have to figure out how to escape. It does not go well. And all I have to say is wolves. And there's like the director's cut and you see everything. And if a regular wolf can do that stuff to you, forget about the dire wolf.
Forget about it.
Did you mention, did they mention saber-toothed tiger or no? Just the woolly mammoth?
Look, by the way, can we just bring back the cute ones, like a dodo.
Yeah,
wouldn't
bring
hurt
back
anyone.
the dodo. I love birds. I'm a bird person. There's a lot of birds. You can
Currently,
bring
the
back.
wolves are living on a private 2,000-acre facility that I'm sure is very secure, guys, at an undisclosed location in the northern United States. Some native nations have expressed interest in eventually providing land where dire wolves can once again roam freely.
Problem solvers.
Now, I saw the cover of the Time magazine piece on this, and I thought that is the kind of thing that would be on the magazine rack as the newly introduced female lead is buying like nail polish remover and a lipstick at the CVS.
Yeah,
and that's the signal that later she's going to be using her nail polish remover to fight feral dire wolves. Like that's how that goes down.
If you're concerned about where we're going in this direction, do you know the best way is to put the kibosh on it? Have Elon Musk invest in the company. Then everyone say, "Oh my gosh, this is a terrible idea.
Wolves.
This is a terrible
Down
idea."
with wolves. Okay, one last thing.
Yeah, and then I have one last thing. So you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
One last thing.
Yeah, this is good. We have
I
time.
am currently working as an advisor with the Public Labor Union Accountability Committee. That's PLUAC. That's right. And they
Not to be confused with HUAC.
I know we are doing work to make sure that people know about how you get hosed by public labor unions, because the thing about that is that like the Randy Weingardens of the world, when you feel like they're negotiating against you, it's because they literally are.
Yeah.
Because public labor unions, which FDR himself opposed for this reason, are not like private unions that negotiate with a company that creates something and profit from which they can take parts of to create their benefits. No, they're arguing with the government, which creates nothing. And when they collectively bargain, they do it with your money.
Yeah.
And then they get all these benefits with your money, and then they use your money to do more work, to get more benefits, to elect more Democrats, to pay for all of their political actions. So you can stay tuned to my Twitter X at MKHammer or at PLUA committee.
Thank goodness for them that they have you.
I know. We're doing stuff.
No, this is great.
We're getting the word out.
And one last thing.
Keep Randy Weingarten mad.
That's right. And one last thing, Mary Katharine. We talked about Sunny D, the drink.
Yes.
And there was some back and forth among listeners, some who were really pro and some who were
Really
very
pro?
against. Yeah.
Okay.
And pro. And others like Sunny D or bust, right?
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned Five Alive, which is a great one. But somebody else who was like, this is like, it's terrible for people with diabetes, the whole deal. Sunny D is now being acquired by a Guatemalan conglomerate for $1.5 billion. The conglomerate is called Castillo Hermanos, not to be confused with Los Pollos Hermanos.
Yes.
They say that their plan is they want to expand the base. What is the base of Sunny D? Who is Sunny D's drinkers? That's what I want to know.
I think only when you add alcohol do you earn back the old millennials that you had.
Yeah,
because I did buy a 6-pack of the hard Sunny D.
Oh, it's hard Sunny D.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm not going to do it the regular kind.
No, I was going to say the base.
Clearly, Canadian will have a talk. But
yeah, no, I was thinking that the base is 13-year-olds from 1985.
Yeah.
So.
Did you see? Yesterday, I believe, was the anniversary of the introduction of the Ecto Cooler.
Oh,
remember
yes.
the Ecto Cooler?
Yes, I do. It was a riff on Ghostbusters.
Yes, we used to drink and eat some nasty stuff.
So it's a product from High C. I'm old enough, Mary Katharine. I remember it came in a can, and you had to do the can opener where you open up the top, but then you had to open up the other side with a little hole so that
because that's physics.
That's physics.
Yeah, Elon Musk. If we get an interview with Elon, we can ask him about that.
Explain how that works. Yeah. The original name of the Ecto Cooler, Citrus Cooler Aid.
Really?
Yes. Huh. And then Ghostbusters came around and they changed it.
Ecto Cooler,
but
was
it's
definitely
the
a better
same
name.
old, good old flavor.
All right.
That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I am at MKHammer on X, at MKHammerTime on Instagram. You can follow the show's feed at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube and Instagram to see our bright, shiny faces. Follow me for more info on Randy Weingarten and the others and how they're screwing over American taxpayers. You can check out my video there where I do a Randy Weingarten impression.
Yikes.
Which I'm going to be working on and perfecting over these days, because if there was ever somebody who deserves to be mocked, it is her. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media podcast.